In our previous videos on Bootstrap, we've looked at doing things like layouts and typography. Now we're going to start to combine some of those to create a navigation bar that's going to go across the top of our screen. Navigation bars are going to have a variety of different things we can put in them that Bootstrap automatically allows us. Things like a logo, our menu, and even a form for doing search on a website. These are found commonly on websites like Amazon.com. So we're going to show you how to incorporate many of these features into the navigation bar, including allow it to be mobile responsive so that if you're a smaller screen, it's going to hide the navigation and put it underneath what we call a hamburger. Or that's that little button you see that sometimes has 3 horizontal lines. That's what it does. So let's show you how to do this very easily inside of Bootstrap. Now we're going to start off here, and I'm just going to create a new nav tag. And I'm going to add a class, Navbar. Now you might think, well, that doesn't do much, and you're absolutely correct, it doesn't. The Navbar is just a container to set things up. In fact, we're going to need 2 containers, the Navbar and then a div with a class of container, and I'm going to use fluid. Now, you can use any of your container classes you want. I always like fluid. That way it gives me maximum space across my screen. All right, so this is my very first piece. You might think, well, is this all I need? If I save this and come over here, you're going to notice that there really isn't anything there. And that's because we don't have any content inside of it. In fact, we're actually missing a couple of small things that we do need. We want to add 2 more classes to our nav. That way it gives us something that we can work with and see a little bit more flexible. So what are they? Well, the first thing I want to do is I want to find when does my menu or the navigation links disappear and I get that hamburger menu. So I'm going to add a new class, navbar-expand-lg. The LG says on what size screens I want this to appear in this case. Anything bigger than large, I'm going to display. If I'm medium or smaller, it has a logic built into it to automatically shrink and remove those menu links and put the hamburger menu icon instead. Now, the next thing you need to do is define the background color. Usually we want our nav bar to stick out. And so I'm going to come over here and add 1 more class. I'm going to be honest, I always have to go save this someplace else and copy and paste it in, because I never remember how to spell tertiary. But it's BG-body, so that's background body of our element here, which is our nav bar, and then dash tertiary. Tertiary is just one of the colors that we can use. Bootstrap also gives us things like dash dark, which gives us a dark nav bar with white text. It also allows us now to start using things like primary, secondary, success to give it the colors that are naturally occurring within Bootstrap. If I save this, go back to my demo, reload, you notice I see a very small gray line up at the top. That tertiary is a very light gray. It's meant to kind of blend in with the white background of your main text. So let's see what we're going to do to put some actual information inside of this. Inside my div, I'm going to create an anchor tag with an href pointing just to the hash symbol. Now, what does that do? Well, that means if I click on it, it's just going to leave me where I am. On a regular website, I would point this to my home page. I don't have a home page. This is just a demo, so I'm going to leave it like this. Then I'm going to need a class, navbar-brand. Create the rest of my tag, and now I'm going to put in what I want my logo or title to be for my page. In this case, I'm just going to call it example. Go back to my screen, reload. You now see my nav bar takes up more vertical space. You see example has a little bit of padding to my left-hand side. And if I hover over this, you notice my icon changes to the little finger so I can click on it. Very, very simple about how this works. My Navbar brand can be text like this, which is very lightweight, easy to run, or I can have as an image. And so by having as an image, I might want to put like a logo or something like that. I can even do a combination if I want to. But this is very, very simple. Depends upon what I want to use. The next thing I'm going to have, and this is going to be after my anchor button, so I'm going to kind of put a blank line in there just so I have some space. And once again, this is something I copy and paste in. I'm going to work through it with you, show you what it is a button. And this button has a class of Navbar-toggler. So obviously you know what this is going to be for. This is going to be a button that's going to appear when my screen gets to medium size or smaller in this particular case, or disappears if I'm larger or bigger. I have a data-bs-tog. You might go, what is that? Well, HTML allows us to define our own tags that we can use when we do scripting. So in this case, data dash, that lets us know it's a custom tag attribute. BS is for Bootstrap, and then toggle. So it's let us know how this is for the Bootstrap toggle. By default, we're going to show it as collapsed. We have a Bootstrap-target, which is Navbar supported content. The JavaScript that they have written is going to need to see that on an ID to know when to make it appear and disappear. We have some ARIA controls, expanded and label. That is for things if we're going to do like voice to text and other types of helper application information that might be necessary. Inside of our button, we have a span with a class of Navbar-toggler-icon. That's that hamburger menu button. So next, we're going to have our actual link that we're going to use for our main navigation. Now, you might get an idea from that Navbar supported content that I talked about that maybe this is where we're going to use it. And you'd be absolutely correct. So I'm going to have a div. And real quick, I'm just going to format this so it's a little bit easier to see. Notice that my default is to show that, hey, this is collapsible, Navbar-collapse, and I have this ID of Navbar supported content. Notice that it is automatically tied to what that BS target is and what the ARIA controls are, so it knows how to find it. Obviously, I don't have any links inside of this, so I need to put some links. And a typical way of doing this is an on list. So in my unordered list, I'm going to have a class, Navbar-nav. And then I can put some other classes in here as well. Like, do I want to put some extra padding vertically or horizontally, anything like that? So I might do something like me-auto. That says M is for my margins, and -auto says, hey, make the left and right the same size. You can actually work and make some of these changes to have it justified to the right, left up against our logo, etc. Another thing I might want to do is change my margin for my bottom. So that's MB dash, and then I specify what do I want this margin to be. And I have different numbers I can use. The bigger the number, the larger. So I'm just going to start off with a 2. That's a pretty easy way to do it. Of course, if I have an unordered list, I need a list item. My list item is going to have a class. That's going to be nav-item. And then inside my list item, I'm going to have an anchor tag, href. Once again, because this isn't a website just for demo purposes, I'm going to use the hash symbol. I would obviously put a regular web page there if I had it. And I can say home. Now, I want to show you something real quick. Because I'm missing a class, I want to show you what these classes do. So I'm going to come over here, reload. You see home, and you see that home looks like a kind of a regular looking link. Well, I'm going to add a class here. Nav-link. And now when I reload it, notice that I have a regular looking link. So this is a pretty nice thing. It's simple, it's easy. And if I hover over it, you'll notice there's a slight change and make it a little bit darker. I could do some other text if I want to. If I want to make it my own, or you'll see a couple other classes we can use in the near future. But this is just a quick example. Let's put a couple of other links in real quick. Reload, and you notice you can see our links here like so. Now, what happens if I want to have and show the active link, the link I'm currently on? Well, if I come back to my code, I can simply add an active, and that's going to show that's active. Likewise, I can come over here and say and disable. So this is going to show me active links and disabled links. You'll see just what they do in just a second. However, I need to provide a little bit extra information for things like those screen readers and helpful applications for anyone who's using assistive technology. So on my disabled, I'm going to add a new class called aria-disabled and set it equal to true. That way it knows, hey, this one is disabled and you can't click on this link. For my active, I'm going to say aria-current, and I'm going to say page. That lets it know that, hey, this is the active page. Come back here to my demo, reload. You notice that products is a little bit disabled looking now. It's a little bit grayed out. If I hover over it, you can't really, there's no hover effect. Home, there's not an active effect, but it looks like the hovered over state. And this is because we want to make sure it's visible like that. Okay, so this is just real simple how we can create some menu navigation. Now you can go into the Bootstrap documentation and find out how to do things like drop-down menus, and that we have nested lists and stuff. And it's pretty easy. We just simply add a couple of classes, another unordered list item underneath the list item itself, and we can do some really simple things to make us have a better and more fold out link like this. So this is just some real basic things. Now you can't tell it because my screen is real wide. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply resize this. And you notice I'm still in that large setting, but once I get to that medium setting, notice that my menu has now disappeared, those navigation links, and this new hamburger icon appears. I can click on that, and it has all those links that are in my navigation, just like I'd expect on a mobile application. Now, the other thing you're going to see is because of the size of the screen, you're not having to scroll any at all. So let me just change this real quick. And I'm going to do this by copying and pasting these bottom two paragraphs just a couple of times. So now you notice we have the ability to scroll vertically. And when I do, my menu bar disappears. Okay, it just scrolls up with my page. So what I'm going to do real quick is in my nav class, I can add a new class, fixed-top. Now when I reload, and notice that now if I scroll, it doesn't move. It's fixed where I want it to be. So that's a pretty interesting little thing. In fact, my navigation bar doesn't have to be fixed at the top. I can make it fixed to the bottom of my screen if I want it at the bottom. I can also make it sticky so it's going to move and kind of see adjust and then go back to the top or bottom. So I can use sticky, I can use fixed. I personally like using fixed. That's just me. One thing you might notice is the very top of my screen, you see it starts with emojdi. But if I look at that, that is not where my actual first piece is here. So I'm going to need to do some extra padding and put something in there to make sure that I can see my whole text. So for example, I might want to have a div class of container. So here I did a margin bottom, put a non-breaking space. And with the margin bottom -4, notice I can now see the lorem ipsum. It's right there. Maybe I want to do just a little bit more. And that gives me a little bit extra line so I can see that. So little things you have to be concerned about if you're going to do that. Now, what happens if I have the sticky or fixed top like I do here, but I don't need to scroll? Well, notice that it still stays at the top. I'm just not scrolling. It's like it would be for a regular page. So a couple interesting little things in there. We can also change what these links look like. So to change that, for example, I'm going to come over here to my nav and specify nav tabs. Now when I roll over this, notice that it looks like it's a little tab. And if I were to change and have other actives, my active state now shows a white background, I have underscores over it. If I hover over different things or click on it, you'll notice that it shows, hey, I have my little tab here. So that's one option. If I don't want tabs, I also have what they call pills, which notice that it now shows a little rounded button that you can see there. So it's a couple of just interesting ways that I can further adjust my navigation bar. Of course, there's other things that we can do as far as creating and styling our navigation bars. This is all inside the Bootstrap text. I just want to get you started with a couple of different options you can look at. Hopefully you found this video helpful in working with Bootstrap navigations. Up next, we're going to look at another component, which is going to be something called a card, which is useful for displaying information. So you're going to want to stick around and watch that. We also, if you don't know, have a whole series on these Bootstrap videos for learning how to use Bootstrap. So check out the playlist if you don't know about it.